I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup offices here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on January 10th, 2020. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you are listening live, we'd love to have you join us in our chat room. It's available. There's a link right above. I used to do this, but now right above the video. I only do that for you, Adam. Thank you. Above the video window, it'll drop you into our YouTube instance, and there's a chat room that is there. Hey, while you're there on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe there so that you'll get notifications every time we go live. Click on the notification bell as well, so you know what we are doing, and you will get notified of those as well. You don't forget, you can also download these on your favorite podcasting app. Just search Gallup Webcast. Love to have you subscribe there as well. If you have any questions after the fact, if you're listening to the recorded version, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Adam Hickman is our guest today. Adam is Gallup's content manager here at Gallup and my go-to guy for anything data. Adam, welcome to Call to Coach.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, good to have you here today. We are really spending the day or this time together talking about the impact of teamwork in the workplace. I think all of Gallup is on a teams and managers kick for all of 2020 as we are kind of building a content hub portal around teams and managers. Today with you, we really want to talk about, and you just posted an article about this at gallup.com, that the link will be in the show notes to it. So if people want to go out and get that as well, they could search for it, and you'll tell them how to search for it and find it. But today we want to talk a little bit about the importance of a manager. We have some data kind of around this, thinking about why have we decided as a Gallup collective to really focus on managers for 2020. With the release of It's the Manager in 2019 and one of the best-selling books, quickest to sell 100,000 on Amazon, we have found a great success and a great hunger for this. But why? Why is this important to us?
I mean, and foremost, it's the thing that we struggle the most with as managers is if I can coach individualized to people, but how do you do that to teams? And what we've started to uncover is there are tactics and ways that you have to go about doing that. One of the ones I think that's leading that we should first all agree and start with is how many do you have on a team? So the coaches that are on here, when you work with those individuals, I mean, you could have a variety of 20 to 30, and how many managers you've run into where they've got more than what we suggest. So here's the sticky number that stick to this. Teams with fewer than 10 members have the highest and lowest levels of engagement in our database. So you think of, well, 10's not that's not a lot. I mean, people have way more than 10. Well, that's what our science would support, where you're going to see the highest and lowest levels is when they have fewer than that. Well, then you start to drill into why is that the case? Well, how many people can you connect with in a day that's truly individualized, where you've done something to develop them, you've done something to engage them? It's hard to reach past 10. You only have 8 to 10 hours a day, right? So that'd be an hour a day. And when do you get your work done? I think I've heard from other managers, I'll hear them say, well, I don't really get my work done until I get home. Well, yeah, then you've got life at home to deal with as well. So how are you doing that if you've got 40 to 50, right? What are the things to branch into as well?
Adam, what else when we think about, so the 10 number, but the manager has a certain amount of responsibility or has an effect on their teams and the engagement. What kind of number have we found that, how are they affecting organizations?
Yeah, our number that you'll see, if you read our articles often, you're going to see this number come up because it's so important, up to 70%. So if you're walking in the office, if your coaching managers coming in the office today, 70% of that is tied back to their engagement. So then if you think of, I always ask, like, well, why? What's in that 70%? What are you doing in that 70%? The two things that they should focus in on, and I think it's so important to keep this in mind, is you should be developing your employees, you should keeping them engaged. If that is at the forefront of every conversation you have with your managers, you're doing right, because at least you'll know you're going to exceed that 70%. But if not, know that you've got up to 70% of that team engagements all around the manager's responsibility.
And how important is conflict management from a team perspective? I know, like, nobody wants to deal with this, right? Nobody loves conflict. But how important that is from a manager's perspective.
If if you do have conflict in your team, and let's be fair, everyone's going to have conflict. It doesn't destroy strong teams. It's going to narrow the focus for them. So if you think of even in your own personal example, make this real for you. When there is conflict, what do? Well, you don't worry about notifications on your phone. You don't worry about what's for dinner. It narrows your focus. That's no different than what we've discovered with teams. When you've got a strong team together and there is conflict, it narrows the focus. That's how you can kind of, individualize not only to the group, but to the team.
And how important, when we think about the role of a manager in the personal lives of their employees, I think, we've oftentimes in the corporate world, we've separated that work and personal life. We call it a balance, but how important is it, or what are we finding in our data about the importance of understanding what's going on in the personal lives of those that they're managing?
Yeah, what our science would support is that strong teams are committed to their personal lives, just as well as their work and life as well. Jim, I think we're a good example of that. Right, I'll bug you regardless of the day of the week, and then there's times I wonder, I'm like, does Jim sleep at all? Because I always see his notifications on my phone. And then I think even in our own personal use, someone will say, well, how does it work at Gallup? Well, we're a great example of that, but there's also other great workplaces that you can read about and see in our articles and things that we publish, that they're doing the same thing, where it's hard to say that there is a balance, because I don't consider there is. I don't think there needs to be. If you love what you do and you're in the right fit for the role, then it feeds into one another. I talk about work. I mean, as silly as this sounds, my kids know I own two shirts. I own Gallup shirts and I own Michigan shirts. That's it. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Right. And it feeds into your life. It feeds into everything outside of that. And I was sharing before the show, I've got a Gallup World Poll book from 1935 forward, and when conversations are low in personal life, I go to that book to say, hey, let's figure out what America was talking about in 1935. Now, does everyone do that? I hope not, but if you do, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation with you. But it feeds in. Strong teams do the same thing. That's exactly how we tie back to it.
So if we're talking about strong teams, we're going to spend the remainder, the balance of our time giving some advice. And actually over the rest of this series, so this is part one of a multi-part series that we're working on together. But Adam, you have what you call Hickman Team Basics. Let's talk a little bit about that and give some advice.
Sure. So very early on, I think I was 19, I acquired my first team. I think anyone that first takes their team, you say to yourself, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but we're going to make this work, right? And then there comes your talent out of the gate. Let's see how this works. I think there's three. I would say there's three things to keep in mind, right? Your talent, your engagement, and your accountability. Mutual or individual, it's totally up to you on how you see that. But those are really just the basics. So what's the talent on my team, right? Who are my star players? How am I working through there? Where am I going to spend my time? The engagement, if you've not read anything from our Q12, I mean, there's Elements of 12. That's a book that you can read from us. Anything on our website, just type in engagement and have a few hours to read through stuff. And then the accountability piece is, we know even from our millennial research, millennials, they desire the accountability. I want to know. I will ask my go-to here at Gallup, tell me when my due date is, because it's going to ignite my competition. Like, if you tell me it's due within the next hour, I'm going to see if I can get it done within 45 minutes. Just, I enjoy that piece of it. So I think there's that piece of, you've got to hold your talent, your engagement, and your accountability.
You've got well, on the accountability. Let me go back to this for a kind. Why is accountability so important? Like, we know people are craving it, but what's the importance of that in thinking through, as people are asking for it, why are they asking for it?
Yeah, so I'll give you Gallup's point of view, and let's talk how this works out. So we know from our millennial research, that's one of the things millennials want the most, is that accountability. Then you dig into why that is. On the other side of accountability is recognition. You're being accountable to great work and great things that happen, and I would say your stars want to be held accountable because they know what they're about to do. They're about to contribute something back to society, to their mission and purpose, where they want the sunlight on, to know that you held me accountable to this, and here's what I brought you, which is really great work. Those that don't want the accountability, I'm hoping you didn't have too much experience, but you kind of know how that goes.
Yeah, and I, when you say that, I always kind of think of, if you don't know what a lot of people come in, the first question we ask, do you know what's expected of you? And I'm always surprised, right? We see in our numbers how few people actually know they're starting a job. They don't know what's
Yeah.
expected of them. They're in a role where they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And
Hmm.
so the role of that manager really is right to set up that success for that person, not only so they understand what they're doing, but also measure and hold them accountable to it. I think a lot of people actually want that in their setting. They want to know they're right. They want to know they're doing a good job. And that's really a manager's role to make sure
Yeah.
that piece is happening. You have kind of 5 C's to work through in the remainder of the time that we have.
Hmm.
When we think about, I think some easy ways when we think about the importance of a manager in a team and how they can affect that. Adam, walk us through that a little bit and tell us what you got for us there.
Yeah. The first one I like, it's common purpose. I'll give you another stat that I recalled as you were talking about. What are some other Gallup numbers that we have? We know that when you hire an employee, you get them engaged, right? No one drives for their first day of work thinking this is going to be a bad day. So our window of opportunity there, and that first 3 months is where we see the highest peak of engagement, and then after that 3 months to 6 months is where you start to see the managers either do their job or you see a decline in engagement. That's a really great Frank Schmidt study to pick on to look at. In that first one, that common purpose, it's do managers, you've got the influence over the team culture. So what is the common purpose of your team? Tied back to that question, what's expected of you at work. Could you ask I remember just asking my team in team meetings, what's the purpose? Why do we exist? Why are we here? What are we doing? Right. And if the questions come back as collectively you're hearing the same thing as to why their position exists, the mission and purpose, then you've done really right. You've had great conversations. One example I didn't include in the article, which I think is cool, is I think of groundskeepers in the corporate offices in the universities. If you ask the groundskeeper what is their mission and purpose of their role, I hope you would hear something to the effect of the experience they create in the environment of the cleanliness, the look, the brand ties back to the student engagement or the student feelings of walking on campus, which initiates their ability to learn and takes that away, would be a dream come true. That would be what a common purpose conversation should sound like. That's what you should be leaning towards, to where your employees feel that without you in the room.
What about connecting the team together? So we've talked about that, creating purpose. And man, if the manager doesn't know what the purpose of the team is, right? We've
Yeah.
got some issues there. But when we think about connecting them, what about that?
Yeah, it's just, can they relate to one another? Do they have the innate talents that can, be productively applied over and over and over? Do you know who you can team up? If you look at the domains of your talents, I've got high ideation, so I need an, as Don Clifton would say, I need an anchor. I'm going to come with how many ideas have I come out with you, Jim, in the last year? And I'm just vetting them out. I'll throw them out there, and we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But in that team, that connection is who else can you team up? Who's your anchor?
Yeah. And I think even in the settings of being strategic as a manager, of making sure that connections are happening where they may not naturally happen, right?
Mhm.
We have connections that work and naturally happen within a team where similar goals or similar personalities line up, but oftentimes there's strategic alliances that need to happen in there that the manager can see needed to get within the purpose of what the team is trying to do, but it's not going to naturally happen. And so the manager's got to make sure those connections are happening strategically, maybe even based on strengths. So we've got some things, we've got some tools to work with there. Teams really struggle in the area of communication. And so talk a little bit about that. I think this is a really common problem in how important is this from a team perspective?
Yeah, let's start with what doesn't work. What doesn't work is manager says, here's how we're going to communicate, go. Here's how it should work. You should individualize to each person. We keep saying that, but I can't say it enough to say you've got to figure out what's the way that your team likes to communicate. Whether it be through email, it's phone call. We've got a role on our team where I always joke with my go-to about, if my light's green, call me. I'd rather us talk through things over the phone than send me an email, because then I can't judge tone, and I've got high analytical, so I start writing a story that doesn't exist. So let's just chat, right? But how do you have that connection and communication where you can effectively, with your team members, communicate to one another? Not only just with the manager to the employees, but within the group itself. So if you remove the manager out of the picture, how does your team communicate? If you've got people in different, as we get more remote or matrixed and remote, like we have team members that are, it's not just are they available. Well, what time zone are they in? What time are they in this week? Right? Jim, when you were in London recently, right? How do I get a hold of Jim if I need to? That became a conversation rather than just where's he at? Why isn't he responding? What's going on, right? You just have to have that conscious effort behind there, and not assume it's one-way street. It doesn't work that way any longer.
I often found as a manager when resources would come and say, "Hey, I'm having a issue with so and so," and I'd always kind of say, "Have we actually had a conversation yet?"
Yeah.
And as a manager, be the facilitator of that conversation. Oftentimes, it doesn't happen in conflict; it won't happen naturally. And as a manager, I kind of have to facilitate those. And every situation is a little bit different, but going in, be the facilitator of those conversations to bring that together. Adam, you mentioned the remote aspect of it too, and you're in some of the work that you've done around remote, right? We're going more remote, not less, and we've got to figure out how to get this done. I think it won't naturally happen. I think managers have to be very, very intentional about the communication and it working, and maybe not just setting up meetings, regular reoccurring meetings for the team to meet, right? But for some strategic ways to make sure it happens. Have you seen in the work that you've done around remote workers, have you seen anything unique or um, particularly effective when it comes to communicating in this new world of dotted line responsibilities and people working all over the planet?
Yeah, and the quick answer to this is technology. Not do you have it, are you using it effectively? You can get a free account for whatever the case may be, but if you don't know how this is going to be leveraged for it's going to be productively applied to work, you've got a free account to something. And the teams that are the most successful have figured out and dialed into what technology works in our industry, in our workplace, and how are we going to use it every single day? What's the
Yeah.
integration look like? What's the sustainment look like? So, we've got a platform that we're really comfortable with, and it's always refreshing to see when you make a switch from one thing to the next. What's the speed of adoption? Well, when it's super clear and you can see how it fits your work streams and it just happens, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Your talent employees will figure that out for you.
Well, and your fourth C is collaboration, right? And this leads right into that because these tools lead to that. Talk a little bit more about the importance of collaboration.
Yeah. So as your coaching managers, they've got to know this, right? It's a good question to ask. How does your team build and nurture relationships? And I would even say, comma, to get work done, right? To get the work done. It I think our old sentence about you get people done through the work, right, is a version of that. And as you're doing that, that doesn't just appear. There's another conscious effort that has to be done to how are you going to build and nurture the relationships where you can get work done effectively. It's not the same for every work stream. It can't work. There's not an AI machine. There's not a spreadsheet. There's not a software that you can push a button and it works from here to here. I know that when we work with our graphic designers, there's a different way. With your editors, there's a different way. With your thought leaders, there's a different way. And it's great if one person knows, better when the whole team knows, because that's what we're aiming at, is when your team can figure out good questions like, are we easy to work with? How do we build relationships currently? Do I need to somebody asked a question in the chat room about the diversity. Do I need to diversify the relationships that we have within the team? And then what else do we need to include? For the remote aspect, I'd love to throw this question out for folks to start to socialize is when you're coaching managers that have that to help build relationships and nurture them, at the end of meetings, give them this sentence. Who else needs to know about what we just discussed? It's going to keep you in that parameter of collaboration, but also makes you think, this person wasn't in the meeting, we should, right? Then push that out to that. So, well, you've never talked with them. Why don't you break in, have that conversation with them to see or let them know what we've talked about. That's how you start to nurture a relationship, but it also keeps that collaboration going.
100% of the employees that I poll say that they don't get enough recognition. I think that's a really common across organizations, right? That nobody has ever said, "Stop recognizing me. That's too much," right? This fifth C, talked a little bit about the importance of recognition in a management system.
Yeah. Here's a great example. Would I want a billboard on 680 here in Ohio with my face on it saying, "Great job, Adam"? No, I would not. Would I like my go-to to say, "Hey, Adam, great job"? Yes, satisfied. Now, if you're the manager, did you walk around and have that same conversation to know how your person likes to be recognized? Even if they do, maybe there's like, you know what, once a year, like figure out what they want, how they want to be recognized. That's step one. Step two then is how do you do that for your teams? Because individually you get work done, but your teams also pulls that straight through as well for you. So if you ask the question, what's your team's most recent success? Don't stop there, right? You got a recent success, open it up. What worked? If you dial backwards, what was the common purpose for that success? What was the connections that were made? How did you communicate? What was the collaboration? You can unpack all four of those ones before there on that recent success, but what you're highlighting is work got done in a way that hit on all four of those, and you're also paying a tribute to the team's success as well.
Adam, anything else that you would add? We've gone kind of through a quick summary of this. We're going to spend some time with Kathy in the second session. Kathy has coached and worked with managers for many years, and we're going to get some practical application to this as well. But Adam, anything else as we would think about kind of the numbers and the importance behind managers you would add as we wrap this up?
Not in numbers, but it's a statement I would say our own Gallup CEO or CHRO, Matt Mosser has taught me, and I know we've put it into some of our courses, that the strong teams are magnets for talent. And I don't think you need a number for this, because as you see in pretty much any sports or any other industries as well, when you've got a close-knit team, you want to be a part of it. And when you're coaching teams, you're coaching managers for those teams, as they get stronger and grow, their brand internally gets stronger and grows, and you'll see people want to cross streams into being a part of that team as well.
Yeah, Adam, I really want you to reemphasize that 70% number. Like when you see a number, you're a numbers guy. When you see that number, what just give me a few sentences on what's that really say to you?
I think of every conversation, if you're a manager, if like we'll hear in some of our courses, are you telling me that I should be developing engagement in my employee every time we talk to them? Yes. Right. How that's going to come out is in different variations. There's no secret one sentence here, use this. Or if you're thinking of, can I have a template for this? No, because every person's different. But if 70% of every conversation you're having with your employees is developmental in nature, right? So it's future oriented, it helps them see and coach along the way, and they're engaged when they're done. It's not a I love this one. If you schedule on someone's calendar coaching at 1:30, well, okay, you are, but how about we just have a conversation, right? That's in development in nature and engaging, and not a scheduled coaching in a back room or at my office, and there's people and words, and then there's a follow-up email. Here's what we talked about, in case you can't remember the conversation we just had. Like, there's things that you can do to install that 70% in every conversation. And I'll tell you, at first it's daunting to think, like, I got to keep in mind with that. Yes, you do. And the more that you do it, the more that you practice it, it becomes second nature, right? And then there comes the other pieces that come along with it.
Yeah, well, Adam, I appreciate you jumping in with us today to really talk about the importance of that, why that matters, and some numbers behind it. With that, we want to remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available around this. This season, we're building an entire hub around teams and managers, and those will be available. One of the new things we are doing or making available for you in the YouTube description or in the podcast description as you're listening to this, we've placed the link to this hub that'll be available for you in there as well. So if you just take a quick swipe through, if you're listening live, you won't see it now, but it's available for you there. Get that link, head over there, see the resources we're making for you. We're excited about getting that done. You'll also find the audio and YouTube instance of this program, as well as all the past ones that we've done. They're available through our YouTube channel. So just search CliftonStrengths on YouTube. Pretty easy to remember is that. If you want to subscribe to us as a podcast and the various podcasts we have available for you, search Gallup Webcast to do that. Also on the post for this, we have a sign up for the new Clifton Strengths community newsletter. You might want to be involved in that as well. You can go to the very bottom of the post and sign up. We'll send that to you every single month. If your organization is struggling to implement anything we discussed, or you've got any questions about this at all, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. A complete list of all the courses we have available, including a brand new Boss to Coach journey, which will launch here at the end of January and early February, is available on our courses site. Just go to courses.gallup.com. If you'd like to know when we publish these webcasts each and every month, you can get that through our Eventbrite page. Go to gallup.eventbrite.com. If you want to join us for the 2020 Clifton Strengths, oh no, we don't call it that anymore, the Gallup at Work Summit, that's available out there as well, June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. By the way, a Clifton Strengths track in it, so we're excited to have that as well. You can do that, gallupatwork.com. And of course, join us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/call-to-coach. Or you can head over to LinkedIn to our Clifton Strengths Trains Coaches page. You don't have to be a coach to be on that page. Just search for Clifton Strengths Train Coaches on LinkedIn. We'd love to have you in that. If you found this useful, we'd ask that you share it. If you're listening live, hang around for part 2. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.